Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Fourth and Long Podcast, episode 8, I believe, right, Jake?
Yep, it's number 8.
Episode 8. We had a very action-packed and surprising-filled weekend of college football, and even last week with all the news that came in. But for right now, how you doing, Jake?
Good. How are you, Justin?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I don't know if you saw, but I have like 6 articles that need to go up that haven't gone up.
Yeah, I saw that.
Hopefully they'll get in there soon. But yeah, so I also had my interview with Randy today, and that was fun. So, but we're gonna get started. A new segment is called Today in Sports History. It's basically I'll do a fact about any sport on this day, and then football facts. So today in sports history, in 1934, Yankees first baseman Lou Gehrig won the American League Triple Crown after hitting 363 with 49 home runs and 165 RBIs. However, he was not named AL MVP as that went to Philadelphia A's catcher Mickey Cochrane, who hit 320 with 2 home runs and 76 RBIs. So who knows what their voting guys were doing back then in baseball, but with that stat line right there, Lou Gehrig, that's just crazy. And then for your football fact today in sports, in 2007, Navy beat Notre Dame 46-44 in triple overtime, ending the Fighting Irish's NCAA football record-winning streak against the midshipmen at 43 games. The last Navy win over Notre Dame before this was in 1963, which Navy won 35-14. So that is something that we will continue to do on the podcast, and I think it's just better because every week when we do 5 things in 50 seconds, it ends up just being about COVID. So we're going to hop right into the news and notes from last week and this week so far. Jake, you had texted me something, so why don't you get started on that?
I'm spacing out right now.
So Wisconsin.
Yeah.
There you go. Go ahead, take it away.
Wisconsin is canceling their game again this week due to the COVID problems within the team. I had texted you this, and Wisconsin starting the year off 0-2 without even playing a game, and there's no one.
1-2.
Well,
they played the first game.
Oh, they did play the first game. Well, again, 1-2, and that basically just ends their season right there. The fact that this rule is you cancel the game and you get a loss for it is just again, we had talked about this before the start. It just, if teams are going to be canceling games, players are just not going to play. Especially if they have hopes and, as you said, hopes and dreams and be wanting to play in the NFL and stuff. They'll just take the year off and prepare for the draft rather than possibly get injured. Players are getting hurt in practice. There was a player at
Ole Miss
that got airlifted because he couldn't feel his body at practice.
Yeah.
Players are just going to start, the star players who are can be first round or even second round draft pick are just going to start stepping away. And I don't blame them.
I don't blame him either. I mean, you don't see Jamie Newman and Jamar Chase have COVID right now, so they're the ones that opted out, and Micah Parsons doesn't have COVID as far as I know. Those are the guys that opted out, and they seem to be healthy and basically just getting work in for the NFL draft. But yeah, as far as Wisconsin, I mean, it was a silly rule to begin with by the Big Ten, and it's just, Wisconsin's basically out of contention right now. I know I told you this when we kind of brought it up before the show. I think we're going to see, if you're not in the Final Four in the playoffs, I think we're going to see a record-breaking number of players sit out their bowl games because it just doesn't matter. So, but that's news and notes about Wisconsin. Now we go on to probably what is the bigger news, if not, it is the bigger news really around the college football landscape. So last week, Trevor Lawrence had told Dabo Sweeney on Thursday that he tested positive for the virus and he did not play on Saturday. We will cover that game, but Clemson struggled to beat Boston College at home, even though their freshman quarterback DJ Ugalali played a pretty good game. But yeah, and so the big question is this week. Well, you said it. He will be on the sidelines, but he won't be able to play. So what's the point of not letting him play? Like, if he's going to be on the sideline, why can't he play?
I think the point of doing it is that there's no real reason behind it.
I agree.
Because if he's asymptomatic, he's just going to be infecting all the other players. Why would you have him be on the sideline? I mean, you brought up a good point. Maybe it's to coach up DJ and to help him out with some reads and stuff. But again, DJ played pretty well, and we'll cover the game a little bit later. But what's the point if you're not going to let him play? Why have him on the sideline? Yeah, I don't understand it. I really don't.
And it's silly, and I know the SEC is kind of different. It's a different college football world down south than like anywhere else in the country, and all they do is care about football. So the SEC made their rules and their like bylaws about the virus like very clear and open, that if you tested negative 3 times in a row, you could play. So that's obviously why Nick Saban was able to coach in the Georgia game. But yeah, he's gonna miss this week's game. This week's huge game at Notre Dame.
Yeah, this game has huge implications for them, especially especially for both teams. I mean, we'll talk about it later, but it's just a huge game going into this week.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how voters would vote for the playoff, or the committee would like how they would value a Clemson loss this weekend without Trevor Lawrence, but then they would face Notre Dame again in the ACC championship and beat them. How would they evaluate that? Other than, I can't really think of. I mean, I saw for the first time today, the Pac-12 hasn't even started. I saw, I think, on like 247 Sports that they're picking Pac-12. They picked Oregon to go be the number 4 seed. So it's very unlikely that you'll get now the Big Ten. You won't get 2 bids no matter what. The Big 12, maybe if Oklahoma State keeps running the table, can get in as a 1 loss, but their schedule is weak. And then obviously we've been hitting on it lately, but I think the group of 5 is alive as it's ever been in the playoff era. I mean, I think Cincinnati has a real shot, and I think BYU has a real shot if they can get through their game this Friday at Boise State. Yeah. But yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how the committee evaluates that.
I mean, I think you're right. I mean, BYU and Cincinnati have made great points. I mean, I think Cincinnati makes a huge jump this week, especially after they came off 21 days and just wiped out SMU, held them to 13 points. And then this past week going up against Memphis, who they haven't been able to have Memphis has had Cincinnati's number. And they go out there, hold them to 10 points and whip their butt 49-10. I mean, that's just that's impressive on my part. You know, I was down on them going into last week. I didn't think they were going to perform well against SMU. We both did, and they came out and showed everyone wrong. So I think Cincinnati is a team you need to take seriously and is going to make a push. But on the other hand, BYU has also been really good as well.
That's a huge game they have this weekend.
Yeah. Again, it's going to be an up in the air. Again, it's going to be up in the air for both of them because of their strength of schedule. But they're both making very, very solid pushes for being in a consideration for a top 4, if not top, the first 2 out type conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also got to remember, I mean, I would say Cincinnati's strength of schedule might be better than Oklahoma State's right now, because you have to remember Cincinnati beat Army earlier in the year when they were ranked 22nd. And we all know Army is obviously eligible for a bowl now. It was the first team to declare itself going to a certain bowl. I forgot what bowl. I think the Independence Bowl. But Bowl. So they've had a tougher schedule, and I mean, it depends on if Oregon comes out in the Pac-12 and really runs the table, or like a team like USC really runs the table and really shows style points. I could see them getting a Pac-12 team in. And on top of that, I think Oklahoma State's going to lose again at some point this season.
Oh no, after last week's game and how kind of they've been shaky the last 2 weeks. I completely agree with you on that. I think they're a good team, and I think they'll have a top 10 finish this year. But I think you'll see them fall off a little bit because they'll let these teams that they should be pulling away from not really pulling away from them.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, and make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter and us on Twitter for updates because basically every day there's a new update with the virus and everything like that.
Yeah.
But to get to a little bit less serious note, and obviously, once again, like we say all the time, we wish the best for the players, family, and friends. Hopefully, have a safe recovery. But to get on a less serious note, another new segment we're going to do is called Two Truths and Two Lies. I'll say four statements, and you tell me which two are true and which two are lies. And this week, this Tuesday, I'll do it Tuesdays, and you'll do yours on Fridays. But this week, it's about Justin Fields. So I'm going to read them off for you, and you tell me what you think. Fields has two sisters. Fields' father was a linebacker at Eastern Kentucky before joining the Atlanta Police Department. Fields at one point was committed to Penn State, and Fields also ran track in high school, specializing in the sprints.
All right. I have a feeling I know one of the truths is his father was a linebacker. I'm pretty sure. I remember hearing something about that.
Well, I also I worded it too long there. It's like, okay, you didn't write that out to be false, dude.
The next one, I don't remember hearing about Fields. I think the Fields one point was committed to Penn State was actually false. I don't remember him ever being committed to anywhere other than Ohio State.
He went to Georgia.
What?
Fields went to Georgia first. So he obviously was committed to Georgia.
All right, well, he was committed to Georgia. I'm going to have to say that he also ran track in high school.
All right. So you did get
the father. So I didn't get the second one.
You got the father. Fields didn't run track in high school. He was a very good baseball player. And Fields was actually at one point committed to Penn State. And then Fields has two sisters. Is false. He has three sisters. One that plays college softball. So that's just a cool way to get to know some random facts about some people. But yeah, he was committed to Penn State. I think when he was a senior was when Penn State hosted Ohio State in that whiteout game, and they blocked the kick and returned it all the way and upset Ohio State. And he said that he really wanted to go there after seeing that atmosphere, which we didn't get to see this week. I don't know if you saw it, but they kept showing like playbacks of like old games in the whiteout.
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
The whole time I was just like, man, I wish this was happening this weekend. Like even if Ohio State loses, that's such a cool environment. And I talked to Eric Webb, who's one of our other writers, our NBA writer, and he went to Penn State, I think, and he was like, yeah, it's just not the same. So we'll put you down for you got 1 or 2. So that's how we'll kind of score it. And after that segment, we are going to head into Week 9 review. I know we've been talking a lot about COVID, but we are actually now going to talk about the games that actually took place this weekend. And the first one we're going to do is Michigan State at Michigan. This was one of my games, but chime in whenever you want. Michigan State won 27-24. They upset the Wolverines, and my biggest question here: Joe Milton obviously isn't the answer. He ran for more yards than I think he passed for, or he just ran a lot and not on purpose. And he was 32 for 51 for 300 yards and no touchdowns. And the four-headed monster running back, Charbonnet, Corum, Haskins, and Evans were nowhere to be found. Corum had 5 carries for 15 yards and 2 touchdowns. The big thing with Michigan State this week is last week when they played Rutgers and lost, they turned the ball over 7 times. This week they did not turn the ball over at all. And Rocky Lombardi, the quarterback for them, was 17 of 32 for 323 yards and 3 touchdowns. However, the real star for Michigan State was receiver Ricky White, who caught 8 balls for 196 yards and a touchdown. So I guess my biggest question here is this brings Jim Harbaugh's record at home versus rivals to 1-6 and 0-5 versus the Buckeyes. And I mean, two kind of things I want to kind of ask you is, like, is Jim Harbaugh gone after the year, and can Michigan hire anyone better than Harbaugh to coach? I mean, I don't. That's a big name.
I think Harbaugh. I think you're definitely right. I think Harbaugh's on the hot seat this year. I mean, the guy since being there hasn't done anything. He appeared in one bowl game and lost, I believe, or he hasn't even appeared in one yet. And they brought him in to bring a team to either a top 4 finish with the college football playoff, or to win bowl games and to be like Wisconsin is. But he hasn't done anything. Can you name me a year anyone's actually talked about Michigan being a top 4 contender? I can't. Since Harbaugh's been there, I can't. I really can't.
I think there was one game. Yeah, it was 2014, the year Ohio State won the semifinal, where I believe it was like a 2 versus 4 matchup, or a 1 versus 3, or a 3 versus 4, or a 2 versus 3, and they also lost that. I mean, everyone knows the biggest thing at Michigan is you have to, and Ohio State likewise, you have to beat the team up north, or you have to beat Ohio State if you're from Michigan. And he just has failed to do that. And I got to tell you, I think Michigan's going to lose a couple more games, and I don't think they have a real shot to take it to Ohio State this year. But on the other hand, good for Michigan State. Mel Tucker, I don't know how he got that job. He basically was at Colorado for a year, produced like a 5-7 record, and then came to Michigan State. But apparently a lot of people turned down Michigan State, including Luke Fickell, who was at Cincinnati. But I think Harbaugh is clearly on the hot seat, and another loss to a rival, I think, might be checkmate. But like I said, I don't know if they'll be able to get a bigger name than Harbaugh. But with that being said, we will head on to Mississippi State at Alabama, which was one of your games. So enlighten me.
I mean, it was just Alabama's going to be Alabama. Mac Jones, I know we don't have it this week, but I've been looking at the rankings, and with Trevor Lawrence being out these 2 weeks, everyone has Mac Jones as their number 1 for the new Heisman favorite.
Mm-hmm. He's most sports books either have Mac Jones as a slight favorite over Justin Fields, or I believe FanDuel Sportsbook has them as co-favorites.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, you can't argue with the numbers. The guy went 24 of 31 for 291 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, and that's like the small stat sheet. I mean, Najee Harris also had 21 carries for 119. But the biggest news coming out of this game, and the biggest news, I mean, when we talked about it last week, was what is Devontae Smith going to do now that Jalen Waddle's out? And dude performed. 11 receptions, 203 yards for 4 tutties.
Yeah,
I mean, he's just showing that he can do it. I mean, again, that was like the biggest question going is can Devontae Smith show out
and fill in for Jalen Waddle? Yeah,
and step in for Jalen Waddle, and I think he proved it. This week I didn't have a lot of faith in him, but the ability's there. We just didn't know how he'd perform on the outside. Now, given Mississippi State is a very weak team on the secondary, I mean, it's still like I'm gonna not push all my chips into the Devontae Smith basket, but I'm gonna put a little bit in there because I do have faith in him, and I think this is gonna show the ability that he has. And maybe this is the best thing that could happen for his draft stock this coming NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, he was an absolute stud on Saturday. I mean, granted, Mississippi State just couldn't hang with Alabama, and I don't think they'll have another game this year where anyone can really hang with them. But I do think once they face or get to the playoffs and face tougher teams.
Oh yeah.
Only having Smith and not Waddle, it might hurt him a little bit. But to me, that's just a program thing. I mean, it's
Hmm.
next man up. It's next man up, like your boy
No,
Bill
again.
Belichick
Yeah.
always says.
Hmm.
But yeah. So I have a question for you. I mean, is Mike Leach at Mississippi State a one and done guy? Is he out after this year?
See, the thing with Mike Leach and that Mississippi State team is they've just really been lackluster this year. I mean, what they haven't scored over 13 points since week 1. 14 points since week 1. You know, they scored 14 against Arkansas, which they should have beaten. They had 2 points against the Kentucky team a couple weeks ago, and then they absolutely got demolished by Texas A&M. Now, the rest of their schedule is just rough. Like, they have Vanderbilt this upcoming week. Then they go to Auburn, and Auburn's looking like they're turning the table around. But again,
At
this
home
Mississippi,
too.
yeah, exactly. But again, the rest of their schedule is really rough. You know, they have Vanderbilt, Auburn, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Missouri to end the season off. And
Yeah,
it's like you're going to Georgia in the dog pound. That's already going to chalk up a loss, and the Ole Miss game is probably going to be a loss too. You know,
yeah,
Missouri's no slouch. Their schedule this year is very difficult. I think I don't think Mike Leach is going to get his job's definitely going to be in question, but I mean, I just again, it's the same question with Michigan and Harbaugh. You're
yeah.
not going to get a better
Exactly what I
coach.
was gonna say.
You're not going to get a better coach than Mike Leach right now. And their programs, I mean, their program this year has kind of been struggling with some injuries back and forth. Like nothing super major to keep someone out, but just like the minor details, you know, KJ Costello has clearly had a leg injury. You see him on the field and he's limping around, and nothing's officially released, but something's going on down there, and you really need that kid to kind of be mobile to create some room and be an effect, like give defenses a threat that he can run with the ball, but they're just not getting that. So, and they're just throwing the ball. I mean, again, that week against Kentucky, they threw the ball 70 times and threw 2 points again and only scored 2 points.
Yeah, I mean,
You just
it really makes me think that a gimmicky air raid offense like that, or like a triple option gimmicky offense, just doesn't fly in the SEC.
well, it see the thing is I think it would. It's just you don't have a stud, you don't have a blue chip running back that's a clear threat, and your quarterback can't run right now. So what's the point in running a triple? You know, it's really just running you're saying you're running a triple option, but really you're just running a dive team. To
yeah,
be
I mean,
completely honest,
I just don't think the air raid works as well in the
oh no, it
SEC.
doesn't.
And and yeah, and you hit the nail on the head when you said I don't think Mike Leach can do, or Mississippi State can do any better than Mike Leach. And the other thing is like Mike Leach, if they question his job, he's gonna. I know exactly what he's gonna say. He said he hasn't. He's gonna say hasn't had his guys, his recruits there yet. So
Exactly. So I think it's going to be a thing where he's going to get called in at the end of the year, and you know maybe they win against Vanderbilt, maybe they don't. Worst case scenario, they go they have 5 get 1-9 this year, and he's going to get called in, and they're going to be like, we understand, but next year you do anything less than 500 and you're out of here. And even then, you know, you got to be 2 games over 500 at the end of the year. And I know that's looking way ahead into the future, but I think he's got, you know, if he brings in his guys next year and, you know, the guys that he has right now and develops them, and I just can't see him staying another year. I don't think, again, as I said, they're not there. You can't do much better than Mike Leach right now, but you know, Alabama's assistant coaches are always, you know, ripe for leaving and choosing a job. So you never know. Again, if one of them decides to leave and, you know, become a head coach somewhere, then again, Mississippi State will just sign them off and sign someone from Alabama because it's someone from Alabama who knows what to do.
yeah, I was excited for Mississippi State to hire him, but it's the more you think about it, it's very weird. because he was on the West Coast of Washington State, and now he comes down to the SEC. And like I said, he doesn't have his guys. So, but unless you got anything else, we're gonna move on real quick. Indiana at Rutgers. Maybe the play of the year that happened on their last play in the lateral, but that didn't count. It got called back, so that was awesome. If you want to find that, just go on YouTube and search Rutgers lateral play. I think they lateraled the ball like 17 times.
I saw it. It was crazy.
Yeah, and so Indiana, they're now ranked 13th. I don't think they're for real at all, but I give them credit for starting off well. I mean, they should have lost to Penn State the week before, but they forced Rutgers quarterback Noah Verdal into three-tone.
Wait, so you say they should have lost to Penn State? So you ended up watching the play over again?
Yeah, but it wasn't even just about that. Penn State dominated that game.
Oh well, yeah.
It's just like we're gonna get once we get into the Oklahoma State Texas game. Oklahoma State dominated that game. I cannot believe they lost. But back to Indiana, they forced Rutgers quarterback Noah Verdal to throw 3 interceptions. Verdal was 21 for 34 for 130 yards. That's it's pretty bad. But like I said, that's pretty much all I got. Stevie Scott for Indiana totaled 81 yards on 21 carries. A name to remember for Indiana is Whop Philyor. WHOPPHILYOR was a deep threat for the Hoosiers. He caught 5 passes for 137 yards. And Indiana's remaining schedule is they host Michigan, who they probably can beat. They travel to Michigan State, who they probably can beat. They travel to the Horseshoe. I don't see them coming up.
They're not going to beat Ohio State. They'll probably beat Maryland. And then, hey, Wisconsin might cancel the rest of their schedule, so that's probably a dub.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and they're home versus Maryland, which they can win, and they're at Wisconsin, which will probably get canceled.
And then Purdue.
Purdue, yeah. So it's possible that Indiana could come in second in the East. I really have my favorite now in the West has to be Purdue, I guess, because they skated by not having to play Wisconsin. But that's all I really got with that. I think they could finish 6-2 with a second place finish in the East. But I mean, good for Indiana for now. They've done the right things in hiring and getting players to their program. But they're, like we've said all year, they're just not on the level of the upper tier programs, the Alabamas, Clemsons, and the Ohio State. And with that, we're going to head back down to the SEC, where you had a fun game. It was more like a WWE match.
Oh, I mean, we'll first start off talking with that. I mean, who was it that started the fight? Was it I'm trying to find the.
It was a late hit on Trask, and then Dan Mullen went after and chased after a ref, and that kind of broke out. Yeah, it was weird.
It was so weird. You also was it? Yeah, no. I mean, it was just a crazy sequence of events. But Florida again showing why they deserve to be in the conversation for potentially a bubble team. You know, a 5 or 6 seed coming off. You know, 2 week was it? It was 2 weeks without playing.
Yeah,
it's kind of the same situation Cincinnati has. And I said it the same thing. If anyone's going to have a Cincinnati type thing, it's this team. I mean, Kyle Trask went 21 of 36, 345 yards. He did throw a pick, but again, I mean, if you watch that play, it didn't necessarily look like his fault. It went off the receiver's hands. I mean, he threw 4 touchdowns. He was also the leading rusher on that team.
That's not good. Yeah. I don't like having Trask running the ball.
No, but I don't either. But again, that they're mainly a passing team, especially against a Missouri team. I believe the only time he had carries was, I think there was 2 designed QB runs, and then the other 4 were scrambles because his receiver, they had like only 3 receivers downfield, and they were playing zone. Kyle Pitts, again, still pulling out a great performance. No touchdowns, but 5 receptions for, 81 yards? Yeah, 81 yards.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was gonna say
Sorry, go ahead.
it kind of sucks that Florida's missed 2 games. I mean, you can tell the rust is a little bit on Kyle Trask. I mean, 21 for 36 is and 345 and 4 touchdowns is good numbers. It's not as accurate as he was in the
No.
beginning of the season. And Pitts, I mean, he's still producing, and he's going to probably be a top 20 pick in the NFL.
Oh,
But I mean,
absolutely.
he's completely fallen out of the Heisman race. I mean, he's
Oh,
fallen off
yeah.
the face of the earth. When you have the virus outbreaks like this and you miss multiple weeks, I mean,
I
missing
mean,
two
look
games
at what
might.
Trevor. Look at what we said earlier with and if we kind of want to do that game next, just jump to it. The Boston Clemson game. Trevor Lawrence is just everyone doesn't have him as a favorite now. Now it's Mac Jones. Surprisingly,
Yeah,
again.
we can hop down to the Boston College
Yeah,
Clemson game.
I think that's a good transition to talk about that game.
Uh,
I'll let you start off with it since it was your game to cover with the ACC. So.
the first note I have is screw you, Dabo Sweeney. Okay. Had to get that one out. You Igalele stepped in for Lawrence and played pretty well. He was 30 for 41 for 342 yards and 2 touchdowns. I believe he also ran for at least one, if not two more. Travis Etienne, personally think he's surpassed Najee Harris in like the Heisman race. I don't think either one will be there, or one of them might be there. I think it's gonna be 3 quarterbacks though. He's kind of, but I mean, he's just an all-purpose back. I mean, he led the Tigers in both rushing and receiving. He had 20 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown, and he caught the ball 7 times for 140 yards and another touchdown. He also broke the ACC's, I believe, the career rushing record.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, he's just a baller, and he's going to come out and play. But the biggest question, sir, I mean, obviously, Clemson coming in without Trevor Lawrence was going to be a different team than they were on Saturday. But I mean, the real question is, we should expand upon it more on Friday, Friday. But I mean, with Lawrence out, I mean, I think fans and pundits in South Bend got to be, just over the moon right now.
Oh, I mean, this team almost lost to, a very strong BC team. Like, as you said, a very kind of dogfight team that's just going to always try to come at you. And it showed some of their struggles. I mean, again, with Notre Dame being, they struggled against Louisville. They struggled a little bit last week. I just don't know if, with Trevor Lawrence not at the helm, it's going to definitely be a different game. And I think this is going to be a very, very close game between Clemson and Notre Dame.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be interesting. I think it's good for the game. Unfortunate for Lawrence, but I think it'll be a close one, and I will have my prediction on Friday. But
I think the biggest thing is it's going to make for a more entertaining game. I mean, I remember us talking about this 2 weeks ago when we were about Clemson, and you had Clemson at number 2 and Alabama at number 1, and I'm like, Trevor Lawrence is doing really well, and I don't see them losing. We had talked about it. We didn't see them losing another game at all this year because of their schedule. We said the closest might have been UNC. Now UNC's kind of dropped off and doesn't really look like the team they've been. And now it's this Notre Dame game.
Yeah.
We marked it at the beginning of the year.
What happened to North Carolina? Just real quick. Jeez, they lose to Virginia. But yeah, go ahead.
I mean, again, touching on that was just I had called that at the beginning of the year. I just didn't, or like week 2 or 3, I had said UNC was not. They were kind of one of those fluff teams that was like just there at the beginning. But again, this Clemson Notre Dame game has gotten a lot closer due to the loss of Trevor Lawrence. But again, if ETN can pull out a game like he did this last week, and DJ can sharpen up some of those things, maybe go 35 of 37 for 400 yards and maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns. I say that. I mean, I think this kid's definitely going to have a better week this week. Again, it was his first career start. A little bit of the nerves showed early, but I think in the second half he only missed like 3 passes. All the incompletions came in the first half.
Yeah,
So you can't be for a true freshman to come out and do that against a very seasoned BC team. That's impressive, and he led the game-winning drive. So I can't. Again, there are some concerns there, especially on the defensive side, but I just I think he's going to be a legit player this year once he starts to grow, and I think this second week is a great test for him
yeah,
to see what he's really made of, and I think this will define kind of what his identity is going to be. You know, is he going to be one of those kind of managing quarterbacks, or is he going to get in there like Trevor Lawrence and just throw dimes all day?
yeah. That's what I was gonna say. The one thing DJ Ugalele can't do this weekend is be a game manager. Clemson
Mm-hmm.
needs a quarterback that can make plays. But like I said, I still have to cover the Notre Dame Georgia Tech game. We'll
Right.
get to that after your next one. But yeah, we'll talk more about this probably at nauseum on Friday because we
Oh yeah.
have 3 really good games this coming weekend. But
Yeah,
with that being,
we might have to put them in a random generator for our game of the week this year.
I told people I asked people to vote. Hopefully, I get some responses. Apparently, people responded to the Fourth and Log pod asking me questions, and I just found it. Somebody asked, "Is Cincinnati for real?" And is Big Ten? Could Indiana win the Big Ten West? And I said, "No, Indiana can't win the Big Ten West because they're in the East." But yeah, let's hop to I think probably your biggest game of the weekend. Texas at Oklahoma State.
I mean, crazy game. You know, again, Sam Ellinger's just, I'm sorry, but he is just so terrible. He went 18 of 34 for 169 yards and 3 touchdowns. And they still found a way to beat Oklahoma. It was a rough game for Oklahoma. I mean,
State.
sorry, go ahead.
I said Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Oklahoma. Well, I said ST, Oklahoma. I just shortened it.
It's actually longer when you say it ST than state. But go on.
Spencer Sanders though was really, I think, I know they lost, but was really impressive in that game. I mean, he wasn't the most accurate. He did miss 12 passes. He went 27 of 39, but he had 400 yards. His average for that game was 10.3 yards per reception. He threw 4 touchdowns and only 1 pick. And again, I remember saying it, and I wrote about it. It would come down to Chuba Hubbard being able to run the ball, and Texas defense held him to under 3 yards a carry. He needed to average at least 5 in order to help that team game manage the clock once they got ahead, and they just couldn't do that. But again, another name to watch. It was Ty. I'm gonna probably mispronounce it. Tylan Wallace.
Yeah, Tylan Wallace. Yep.
I mean, 11 receptions, 187 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This man is like. I remember looking into this game and saying, okay, Chuba Hubbard should be the main contributor on offense, but because Oklahoma State hasn't found a receiver they can go to, but Tylan Wallace over the last 2 or 3 weeks has really separated himself. I mean, if you look back at his stats for, this year so far, he led the team last week against Iowa State, 5 receptions for 76 yards. He didn't have a touchdown, but he didn't have to get him into position. And the week before that against Kansas, he had 9 receptions, 148 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, this kid hasn't had a game of under 75 yards all year.
Yeah, he was part of their 3-headed monster coming into the season of Sanders, Tylan Wallace, and Chuba Hubbard.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the Cowboys had 400 yards passing from Sanders. Obviously, you explained the day by Wallace. Chuba Hubbard.
Turnovers.
Turnovers.
That's what I was just about to get to was they were able to they had turnovers, but they weren't able to force any turnovers. They didn't have and they couldn't pressure the quarterback. They on the day they only had 5 pressures on Sam Ellinger.
Yeah.
which is
So
crazy despite how poorly his passing performance was. But again, they lost between Sanders and Brown. They lost three fumbles. They had three fumbles. They lost all three of them, and that was really the biggest problem for them is they couldn't. What was it? They couldn't.
is
Oh
your
God.
brain fried from too much work?
No, yeah, probably. They couldn't hold on to the ball in a way. They
Yeah.
couldn't. Like I could understand if they fumbled the ball, but they recovered it, but they didn't. And Texas had two fumbles, but they recovered both of them.
Yeah.
So
They
I
took.
mean,
They definitely took advantage of the turnovers they were given. Sam Ellinger didn't play great, but yeah, I could see Oklahoma State going down at least one or two more times this year, and I think that's a pretty much the Big 12's out of playoffs. I know we said that earlier when Texas and Oklahoma lost, but I think there's really no way for a Big 12 team to sneak in. So unless you got anything else on that one, I'm going to head back to the ACC.
no ball you.
Notre Dame played at Georgia Tech. We had said this early on about Georgia, and we've been right so far. But their defense is for real, and Notre Dame's defense is for real this year as well. They only allowed 238 total yards versus like a tricky spread triple option Georgia Tech team. Ian Book is the definition of a game manager right now.
Oh yeah.
He was 18 for 26 for 199 yards and one touchdown. Um, Notre Dame, because their defense was also able to control time of possession, they nearly like doubled Georgia Tech's, and they were crushed by penalties. Notre Dame was this weekend, so they need to clean that up because even though Clemson will be without Lawrence, they still need to play pretty much a perfect game
Oh,
to
absolutely.
beat Clemson. And I also want to say Brian Kelly killed a guy. So
I mean, can't really say anything of that.
but yeah, if you want to, you can go into any of your other ones. I think you just have.
I have
Uh,
the Memphis Cincinnati game.
yep, and then I have my electronic
I
one
mean,
too.
I was completely wrong with this one. I thought it was going to be a lot closer game. Harold, if you're listening, you let me down.
I would say I thought you liked Memphis because of Harold coming on the show.
No, I just thought again, Memphis has had their Cincinnati's number the last 2 years. They've only lost one game, and that was their first matchup 2 years ago. Other than that, they've gone into this game. They had beaten them 3 straight times, including twice last year, one for the AAC championship and one during the regular season. And it was just Memphis is kind of struggling this year. But Cincinnati, I mean, we talked about before going live tonight, is kind of the real deal. They've just shown that they can compete with the best of them. You know, they came off 2 weeks or almost 21 days without playing. They whooped SMU. They held them at SMU to 13 or 10 points, and they did the same this week against Memphis, who does have a pretty decent team and can throw the ball. I mean, they didn't. Their corners are still struggling. Their run defense is what stood out to me. I mean, they held Memphis's Art Clark to 12 carries for only 16 yards, which is an insane number because up until this point he had been doing really well. But again, their corners really struggled. You know, Austin the third, the receiver from Memphis, had 7 receptions, 121 yards, and just kind of tore them up. He didn't have any touchdowns, but he still tore them up. But what really struggled for Memphis was their run defense. They allowed 9 carries for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns to, I'm going to probably butcher this last name. Jerome Ford, I think is how you pronounce it. The freshman out of Florida for them. And he was just an animal that week. Your guy though, the Desmond Riddler, what a game for him. 21 of 26, you know, not the best numbers for, you know, only 271 passing, but 3 touchdowns and 1 pick. I mean, the pick wasn't really his fault. His wide receiver kind of bobbled the ball and just kind of handed it to a defender. But again, Desmond Ritter, who you said last week was a player to watch, really, really stood up in the line in the when Memphis came in, everyone was like, "Oh, Memphis is going to win this game," and Cincinnati just punched them in the mouth. And Desmond Ritter was the driving force behind them winning that game. I mean, again, almost flawless. Only missing 5 passes, one of them for a pick, but that's a pretty impressive stat sheet versus a Memphis defense that has been one of the better ones this year.
Yeah, and Cincinnati's remaining schedule is they host Houston and ECU, and they travel to UCF, Temple, and Tulsa. And I have no reason to believe they're going to lose any of those games. So I think they'll finish undefeated. I guess their toughest game might be at UCF, but they're for real. Their defense is for real. Luke Fickell, I've been saying since the beginning, is going to end up being a high-profile hire for somebody. But Cincinnati is right in the thick of things right now, especially how things are going in the Big 12 and what could possibly happen in the Pac-12. And with that, I'll close out our review with my out-of-conference pick, Western Kentucky at BYU. BYU did cover the 29-point spread, but they definitely have some room for improvement. Zach Wilson had kind of an off day. He was 18 for 32 through the air for 224 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, it's not his usual 35 for 41 and 412 yards and 5 touchdowns. So, just by his standards. But with that being said, I kind of really don't have much more on that game. Other than BYU's toughest game of the season will be this Friday, because it says the 6th, but for some reason I feel like they moved it to Saturday. But it'll be at Boise State on the Smurf turf, so that's nowhere easy to play. But it should be a good game, and that'd be awesome if it was Friday night because we could be watching it while we record. So
yeah.
With that, let's get into our game of the week. Penn State at Ohio State. I mean, just comment when you want, but once again, Ohio State's offense looks spectacular. Mm-hmm. Justin Fields was 28 for 34 for 318 yards and 4 touchdowns. The defense, especially the secondary, looked sluggish on Saturday. Jahan Dotson made 2 of the best college football catches I've ever seen in the same drive.
Oh, absolutely.
And he had 8 catches for 144 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I had thought that Shaun Wade was more of a top-tier corner like guys in the past of Denzel Ward and Marshawn Lattimore. But it doesn't seem like he is. Chris Olave had 7 catches for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Garrett Wilson also lit up the air with catching 11 balls for 111 yards, and he started out the game rushing 62 yards on a reverse. So other than that, I mean, did you see how that first half ended in that game?
No, I did not.
So basically, Ohio State went to take a knee. They were down by they were up, and there was less than 2 seconds left, and they took a knee, and the refs brought the players back on the field and everything, and concluded that they had turned the ball over, was still having time on the clock. So basically, it was like Penn State kicking team was out there versus the Ohio State kick block team, and everyone else was in the locker room. But the guy did drill a 50-yarder, so that's good. And then the defensive line starting to look better. Tommy Toy was a beast on the interior all night. He had 3 sacks, and I believe he had 2 sacks last weekend. So for a big guy like that to be able to do that and be that agile to grab some sacks, that's good. And then Jonathan Cooper and Zach Harrison, the 2 defensive ends, looked better this week, but still nowhere near the level of the Bosa brothers or Chase Young. I mean, and let's be honest, there's very few players that will ever be like to the Bosa brothers and Chase Young. So what do you got on the game of the week?
I mean, again, I think their defense definitely struggled against Penn State. It was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. I thought they were going to beat them by at least 21.
They covered.
Yeah. Barely though, 13 points.
Yeah,
But again, I think Justin Fields is the real deal. That defense kind of needs to step up, especially when they get into later weeks of competition. I mean, they have Rutgers this week, who has been looking like a tough team to go against. I think their toughest game the rest of the year, though, is going to be against Michigan because that's always a big game for them, and Indiana, who is turning out to be one of the teams that could contend with them.
right.
And it could be a foreshadowing of the championship game this year for them for the Big Ten East. So.
Yeah. So I mean, I think Indiana and Michigan, I agree, will be their toughest games. But let's go over our picks record from last week. We're gonna change this up in the future because I thought it was too easy. Now I look and you went 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were better than that, but but whatever. So
Wait, how did I go 3-2?
I don't know. It's just what I have down. I'll look it over afterwards. But yeah. So we're also gonna do our predictions based off the spread. Say kind of like Georgia will win, but Florida will cover, kind of thing like that. So I was 5-0. You were 3-2. We both absolutely dominated our locks.
Yep.
The only one you missed was I was 5-0, and you missed Oklahoma State -3.5, which was a good. I mean, I would have taken.
I thought they were gonna at least win. I thought they were gonna win by like 4 or something, and I was just they missed that pass in overtime, and it was just.
Yeah, the easiest over I've ever bet in my life was Texas Tech at Oklahoma over like 68, and it hit by halftime.
Yeah,
it was crazy. So like I said, I'm 5-0. You're 4-1 in the lock, so we're gonna keep track of it. We'll do top 10s right now. If you want to go ahead and get started.
Yeah. This week I've kind of flopped now. I have Alabama at number 1, Clemson at number 2, just because of the way Clemson's kind of shaping up. I mean, I thought they still were going to be able to handedly beat BC, but showing some of the struggles with the new quarterback back there. I still think they'll beat Notre Dame this week, but we'll talk about that Friday. At number 3, I have Ohio State. Number 4, Notre Dame. Ohio State clearly the front runner to contend with Alabama and Clemson this year. Notre Dame, again, if they beat Clemson, is making a push to kind of flop there and move Clemson down to number 4 and then push Ohio State and themselves up to 2 and 3. At number 5, the first 2 teams I have out, Cincinnati and BYU. Cincinnati really showing this week that they are the real deal, beating a longtime rival of theirs, Memphis. Number 6, I have BYU. I still think, they're not. Neither one of those teams are going to get in due to their strength of schedule, but they're still really good and deserve to be in the conversation for it. Number 7, I have Texas A&M. Number 8, I have Georgia, and number 9, I still have Florida. And even though Oklahoma lost this week, I have them at my number 10.
Yeah, mine is very similar to yours. So we kind of covered the playoff picture with that. You saying that I have the same Final Four if the season were to end today, which sometimes it kind of seems like it might end today.
I mean, least it seems like Wisconsin. It seems like it already has.
And then my first 2 out are Georgia and Cincinnati. I have Texas A&M at 8. I don't know why I can't count. 9 BYU and 10 Florida. My rankings are Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Georgia, Cincinnati, Texas A&M, BYU, Florida, and then Wisconsin, just because I feel bad for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it'll be like we talked about. It'll be interesting to see how the committee evaluates everything with Clemson this week and the Notre Dame game. The other new segment that we're going to go over right now is called Helmet Stickers. It's not very hard to figure out what it is. So I have
because Justin is an Ohio State Buckeyes fan. He likes helmet stickers.
Yeah, right. I think you have one. I have 3. One of mine went to Jahan Dotson, the receiver from Penn State. I mean, just if you haven't seen it, go look it up. those 2 catches he made. One was
No, I've seen them. They're just
oh,
they're
I was just
insane.
telling people everywhere to go, like,
Yeah,
go look it up. Yeah, like that
it's insane.
one-handed catch was an OBJ like catch, but he also ended up with 144 yards and 3 touchdowns. Brees Hall, the running back from Iowa State, had 21 carries for 185 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brees Hall has actually had a really good year. He's just been overshadowed by the rest of what's going on in the Big 12, but he's had a really good year for Campbell and the Cyclones. And then obviously my third helmet sticker goes to Joe Tessitore and his son John Tessitore.
Hmm.
Joe Tessitore was calling the Clemson Boston College game, and his son is the holder for Boston College. And his son came out, went under center, and drew Clemson offsides on a hard count. And Tessitore had been talking about the kid with Greg McElroy, and eventually McElroy was like, "How do you know so much about this guy?" And he's like, "That's my son." So I'm sure that was a really cool moment for their
Yeah.
family and everything like that. I'm pretty sure that I could be a holder at a college football team too. So
All right, so I actually, looking over my notes, I actually have 3 stars this week. I just didn't realize I covered them. My first star of the week, first helmet sticker of the week, I mean, is DJ Uagalili. I mean, the kid's a freshman, comes in against a very tough BC team, leads the game-winning drive. There's 2 touchdowns, rushes for 2 more, and just overall kind of shows that, he's the future of that team with Trevor Lawrence being sidelined. It's good, and he's got a good test this week against Notre Dame. My second helmet sticker of the week goes to Oklahoma State's Tylan Wallace. I mean, this kid has just had a really impressive year. Again, as I stated, hasn't had a game where he's gone under. He's had at least 4 receptions in every single game. He's had at least 75 yards in every single game. The touchdown margin's kind of been off that, but it's just because teams are keying in on him on the red zone being a kind of a height disadvantage. And then my number 3 helmet sticker of the week goes to a big man, actually, you just mentioned, defensive tackle out of Ohio State, Tommy. How do I pronounce the last name?
I think it's Toe Guy or Toy Guy.
Togai. I mean, this kid has really shown his athleticism for being one of the better interior linemen in the country so far that's played. We still have a couple of teams like in the Pac-12 that have some really good ones to play. But again, 3 sacks this last week. And even though he wasn't talked about much in the Nebraska game, he created and demanded a lot of double teams so that his other players and those edge rushers could make plays on their own and on one-on-one. So I think he's definitely a player to watch going forward.
Yeah, and it's Ohio State's known for kind of producing defensive ends, not necessarily interior linemen. So, yeah, him and Haskell Garrett are both really good on the inside. Haskell Garrett, actually, weird story about him. This offseason, he was held up at gunpoint in his car and got shot through his cheek, through the other cheek, and is now playing. So,
Jeez.
but he had to get a couple surgeries. And then I'm just going to go through this quickly. Room for improvement. I have Dan Mullen. I mean, Mullen took part in inciting that fight by going after the refs. He was fined $25K by the SEC.
25K.
Yeah, I think he probably makes like $7 million a year. And I don't know if you saw this, but during his post game press conference, he dressed up as Darth Vader. I mean, come on, man.
I mean, it was Halloween, so I don't blame him, but at the same time.
Yeah, know your audience, buddy. And then my next room for improvement is Jim Harbaugh. I mean, there's nothing more to say.
Yeah,
nothing more to say really about him. And then the other room for improvement, this isn't really room for improvement. This is just an unfortunate situation that's kind of giving Trevor Lawrence the back seat. But Trevor Lawrence, just because, I mean, like you said earlier, in many sports books, he's no longer the favorite. And so it's just unfortunate for him. It would be crazy if Trevor Lawrence went to the NFL this year and after 3 stellar years at Clemson, never won the Heisman Trophy. Kind of like Tua.
Oh, absolutely.
Kind of like Tua last year. So, Do you have any room for improvement?
I mean, I'm just gonna say, besides maybe Alabama after their Georgia win, um, all these defenses need to start really stepping it up. I mean, some of these games, I mean, you look at the score line and it's just brutal. I mean, Ohio State's defense allowing 25 points to Penn State, just kind of abysmal, and like they should be doing better. Michigan should be doing a lot better against Michigan State, obviously. And then Clemson's defense should be doing better against the BC team, whose offense has been diminished. But overall, we've just seen a very poor year of defenses. I mean, we kind of talked about it going into like the fifth week. There's defense just looks non-existent.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Saban said it himself.
You don't have really what? Sorry,
I said Nick Saban said it himself. He said offenses win championships now. So
yeah.
with that, we'll head into trivia. I'll kind of try and go through this quickly. Last week, I was 1 for 3. Jake was 2 for 3. We only each have 2 questions this week. I'll do one.
I have 3.
Okay, you can do 3. That's fine.
Okay.
My first question is, what school had the best BCS record during the BCS era? That is 1998 to 2012.
I feel like we might have gotten our question from the same site again because I feel like I saw that one. So BC, you're talking about the BCS again, right?
Yeah. Pre-playoff.
Pre-playoff. Was it? I want to say it was. I don't think
you can give me one answer on here and then type one more answer in the chat, and I'll tell you.
Okay. Was it the? I want to say, was it the Miami Hurricanes?
No.
Okay. All right. I'll type it in after I ask my question. Who played in the first ever Rose Bowl game?
UCLA?
Nope.
All right, and then
I'll give you one more guess because you can still get one of the. I'll give you 2 more guesses because you can technically still get one of the teams.
Rose Bowl. It has to. USC and Ohio State?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll type the answer in the chat.
All right. All right. So, see, I was thinking. Okay. Yep. Good one. I'm typing the answer to my other one right now.
Okay.
And then this next one.
Of course, it's that one.
I didn't know it. I didn't know that one. Just because the BCS era sucked so much.
Yeah.
What schools had the most players drafted in the first round of the NFL draft? Is it A, Ohio State, B, USC, 3, Texas, or D, Alabama?
Oh, D.
Alabama?
Yeah.
No, you can guess. Oh, you don't get another guess because it's multiple choice.
Yeah, I know. I was about to say, why? I get another good.
You literally you literally just typed the answer into me for the other question.
Wait, you said what were the options again? Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right. My next question: what does the winner of the annual Air Force Colorado football game get? Like, what's the name of the trophy? I don't expect you to get this one. This one I didn't. This is like 2 things out of left field. I just want the name of the trophy, if that helps.
Is it something with like an eagle or like a bird?
Yeah.
They win like the.
You have a lot of birds to choose from.
The eagle's nest or something. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I
get that
in chat.
Right. That's so. Okay. So go ahead.
I have one more. Do you want to look one up really quickly, or do you just want to?
No, just go ahead and ask it. Okay. Maybe I'll make up some ground in trivia.
Okay.
I'm crushing you and everything else.
Who won the first D2 football championship? Fun fact: this team hasn't won it since.
I don't even know who's in D2.
Well, no. Hold on a second. I think this team was in D2, but I'm pretty sure they moved up.
They're in D1, 1AA or 1?
I'm looking right now. Because I remember him having a D1 game. They're in Division 1 right now.
Is it Fordham?
No, I'll give you another guess.
What was the question?
Who was the first D2 football championship team? And they haven't won one since. They haven't won like a championship since. They're in CUSA, if that helps. I'll give you another hint. I'm kind of giving you the answer at this point.
SMU.
Ooh, close. I'm going to type it in chat.
Go ahead, yeah. So we were 0 for today. That's bad. We need to make our questions easier.
I just typed it.
I never would have gotten that. I thought for sure it was an East Coast team because that's where all they start. But that's going to do it for us today on the Fourth and Long podcast. Obviously, we had a ton to talk about. We only went about 7-8 minutes over. We have a meeting tonight, Jake. Don't know if you know, but we have a meeting tonight with Randy.
I didn't know we had a meeting tonight, so
yeah. So hopefully he'll give us some updates on schedule changes, and we're going to try and get our time set for each Tuesday and Friday where we can do it. Everything like that. And with that, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeart, and obviously in the Back Sports Page archives. Actually, all of our shows went up today. I don't know if they're in the show section, but they went up and they're articles now because I redid them, and I don't know why they're not in the web shows, but they're up. So from 5 through now should be up soon. And then obviously anyone with COVID, wish the best for you, your family, and friends. And make sure you follow me at BrownlowJCLE. And Jake, close it out for me. What's your Twitter? Where can we hit you up at?
It's Picciuto Jacob. So Piccuito Jacob. That is my Twitter.
Yep. And for Friday, everyone either tweet at me or Jake who you want us to cover for the game of the week. We have 3 choices: Notre Dame versus Clemson, Georgia versus Florida, and we'll cover all the games, and then BYU at Boise State. So it should be an action-packed weekend. And I guess for the first time, I'm going to say this closing out. Let's hope there's no more COVID news this week so we can just have a weekend of college football that is just about football.
Exactly. I second that. I also want to say peace and love. Tell someone you love them, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
All right. Later, guys.